Hello folks, and welcome back to another edition of the Crypto Byte. Today we're going to talk a little bit about 2023 projections, specifically in Q1. Monty, anything you'd like to start us off with?
Well, let's start off with the projections of the big banks and the major institutions. Let's flash those up real quick. All of them tremendously bearish, right? We have BlackRock, JP Morgan, and many other financial institutions expecting a very, very bearish first quarter. And that's inevitably going to have an effect on Bitcoin. So looking at Bitcoin's daily chart as well, it looks somewhat toppy. And this is when the predators start to come in. This is when the vultures start to circle, right? And we've talked a lot about leverage in the past. Leverage is going to play a big role in this market. It can propel you out of bear markets, but it can also propel you deeper into bear markets. So we'll talk a little bit about that today and how, leverage is going to play a role in Q1 and probably throughout the rest of the year.
Well, let's talk about where we are right now, because we've had a lot of interesting price action in Bitcoin the last couple of weeks. We've gone from 15 back up to 21K now. A lot of people are trying to short this rally, have been left sidelines. There's a lot of angry sentiment from missing out and calling it a false rally. What do you make of the bear market just really conditioning people with tons of PTSD about any move to the upside? I mean, a lot of folks have spread the idea of a potential echo bubble to 25 or even 30K.
Sure.
How do you think that leverage in that market, conditioning over the past year, could play into that?
Yeah, there's definitely a huge psychological role to this price action, right? People have been burned in the past. And with all these bearish projections that I mentioned at the start of the show, the retail trader is looking down. They're all looking in the same direction. And when everybody's piling into the same trade, that's when it typically moves the other way. So we saw positive price action to start Q1. In the Qs, we had a nice bounce, Bitcoin, that nice bounce up. And now people looking to fade Bitcoin's bounce on the back of negative equity price action. The problem is that leverage can get shaken out. And one big reason why is because of Asia. Asia's been bidding, and that's what we haven't seen in quite some time. They've been buying Bitcoin. Their nightly price action has been, positive in the last couple of weeks. Looking at major indices like the Hang Seng Index in Hong Kong, you can see tremendously positive price action. So that is great for Bitcoin, and I think it's shaking out a lot of these shorts, a lot of these vultures trying to play this retrace back down. And talking about the psychology of the market, CJ, I know you have a good chart with an overlay of kind of where we're at currently in this market cycle overall. This is where you typically get an echo bubble or a complacency bounce, and that comes on the back of a short squeeze. I think that is very much in the realm of possibility. And that's why I personally am not trying to fade this Bitcoin rally that we've seen in the last week.
Yeah, I think just not fading it, if you try to play it to the upside, that's one thing, but I think just not fading it is probably wise in and of itself. But let's talk about the echo bubble and more specifically what it is. So in 2019, we had an echo bubble with Bitcoin following the 2017 top. We fell about 80%, and then price went from 3,000 all the way to 14,000 in about 5 to 6 weeks. We're seeing the start of similar bullish price action. We've fallen 75% with Bitcoin. We haven't hit the 84% average bear market correction. I think we may, but it looks very similar in terms of the current conditions to the conditions that led to that 2019 echo bubble in Bitcoin when we had that first short squeeze from about 3,000 to 4,000. Tons of people were caught off guard. They were sidelined. And I see a lot of very similar sentiment now. Now, obviously, macro and things like that are going to play into it, which is why I think we still will make fresh lows come the end of the year, maybe Q3 or Q4. But I want to talk about the concept of echo bubbles, understanding their psychology, and some historic examples of what we've seen. So Vernon Smith was one of the most interesting behavioral economists who studied this concept and proved it, where you have test subjects bid up the price of an asset, it goes into a bubble. Then a few weeks later, those same market participants come back and they repeat the exact same behavior. The bubble, however, doesn't go as high because they've learned a little bit more, and then, of course, the bubble crashes once more. So potentially we could see that idea of Bitcoin trending to 25 or potentially even 30K before crashing again and making new lows. The first known instance of one of these echo bubbles, at least in terms of recorded history, was 1930. Following the 1929 crash in the fall, basically, of 2019, and then going into 1930, there was a regain of 50% of the overall value of the stock market. So these bear market rallies can be very vicious for the bears, and I think it's just something to be aware of, especially when the sentiment from Goldman, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, it's all uniformly bearish. So just something to kind of take into consideration.
Absolutely. And if you think about how much we relied on kind of the Qs and the equity markets in general as a guide for the price action of Bitcoin in 2022, everyone's going to be expecting Bitcoin to follow the equity market. And the equity market is looking tremendously weak. Like we said, those projections have all, been very negative. So if these traders come in, just like they did in 2019, and try and vigorously short this asset, then it can get squeezed up to 25K. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I think that actually is something that is likely. We're seeing a lot of short interest stack up because of that weakness in the equity market and because of the correlation between the Qs and Bitcoin all throughout 2022. But that seems like it's coming to an end here. And I think that puts us at an interesting point. So I wouldn't try and short this market, the Bitcoin market at least. I think that short traders are going to be punished in the immediate interim because it is the obvious trade, and when everyone's looking the one direction, the market tends to move the other. But we'll see. Leverage is a double-edged sword, and like I said, it can propel us in either direction.
Yeah, I mean, either way, let's talk about positioning now. First thing going into that, I think kind of what you just alluded to, the contrarian perspective. It's like markets have this funny way of conditioning you to respond to a certain stimuli for months, if not years, then starts punishing you for repeating that same behavior. Is that the inflection point where people, more specifically bears, start getting punished for trying to short these rallies in Bitcoin? We'll see. Either way, if I can just sidestep a rally, like from the bearish perspective, if I can just sidestep a rally and not short it or even play it to the upside, that's fine by me. I think just not losing money in a bear market in and of itself is an achievement. But I'm interested to hear your positioning, how you're planning to approach the next couple months.
Yeah, so I've actually been accumulating a bit of spot here over the last couple of weeks. Before the CPI print a few weeks ago is when I started accumulating some Bitcoin, just adding it in cold storage, and I think I'm going to continue to do so because I think we can rally to 25, possibly 30K on the back of shorts getting squeezed out of this market. So much of what we saw in 2022 was reliant on the equity markets, but I think that relationship has kind of been broken since the whole FTX collapse and everything that's happened since then. It seems like Bitcoin's kind of on its own path relative to the equity markets, and to me that's encouraging. So I'm leaning bullish. I've been buying spot. Right now we are at some critical resistance, so perhaps wait for a break above 21K to start maybe scaling in. But I don't think that buying at these levels, if you have a longer term time preference, is a bad idea whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point that you made about kind of the crypto market being beaten down much worse than the stock market. Stock market's down like 1% today. Bitcoin's not really doing anything, is somewhat neutral. Well, we're seeing that relative strength, so that'll be interesting. Me personally, vast majority of capital still in treasuries, just 4%, risk-free return, whatever. But I will definitely speculate to the upside in a trading account. At the start of the week, we saw a lot of calls bought in companies like Mara, Riot. We've seen some puts now bought. Of course, shorts are speculating after such a large move. But either way, I think that I'm looking to trade this move as opposed to invest in it. I don't think it's an investment. I think it's more of a short-term trade to the upside. And then Q3, Q4, 2023, we can reevaluate. That's my stance. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. But since we do it for a living, that's my forecast.
Yeah. And I mean, there's that overlay chart of market psychology and the current price action of Bitcoin, right? That would coincide with a bounce up and then a long depression of flattened, consolidation, which is something we've seen Bitcoin do in the past, and I don't think is out of the realm of possibility. So to that point, yeah, not a long-term investment, just playing the top of this echo bubble and then trying to get out, maximize capital so that once we do come back down, retest the lows, I have more capital, more dry powder to invest in this market. So that's the way I'm positioned. That's what I'm expecting over the next 3 to 6 months here, and I think it's going to be actually a pretty good one for Bitcoin.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it'll be exciting either way. Thanks for tuning in, folks, to another edition of the Crypto Byte. If you'd like to learn more about crypto and Market Rebellion, visit marketrebellion.com/crypto to look at our service where we have trade insights, research, and a live platform to interact with not only other members, but Monty and myself. Thank you guys. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.